Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevate Your Business. I'm Ed Jarecki, and I'm thrilled to guide you through today's episode, designed to inspire and empower you on your journey to business success. Thank you for joining us and making this part of your entrepreneurial journey. Elevate Your Business is crafted for business owners, professionals, and budding entrepreneurs eager to gain practical wisdom and insights. During each episode, we tap into the experience of those who have navigated the path of success in their businesses and lives, aiming to equip you with the tools you need to thrive. Today's guest personifies this mission. We're excited to introduce Dr. Thomas Hill from Thomas Mallory Hill and Associates, a company with over 40 years of entrepreneurial experience in distributing unique health technologies. Dr. Hill is dedicated to educating customers on anti-aging and skincare solutions, improving health outcomes, and offering opportunities for additional income. His approach focuses on non-pressure, education-first interactions, leveraging redox biochemistry to enhance lives financially, emotionally, physically, and socially. Join us as we explore Dr. Hill's journey and his passion for building people and extending value in the direct selling industry. As Dr. Hill joins us on the show, he'll shed light on what success means to him personally and how his definition has evolved over time, as well as one or two of his top challenges and the lessons learned associated with them. And finally, we'll explore how Dr. Hill has leveraged innovation in his business and other work to overcome challenges and achieve his goals. So join me in welcoming Dr. Thomas Hill as we embark on another incredible episode of Elevate Your Business. And without further ado, Dr. Hill, it is wonderful to see you again, and it has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you over these past months. How are you doing?
Young man, I'm doing excellent. It's an interesting proposition to be vertical today because so many people are not. In fact, just as a side note for me, I try to get up with the one thing, as the author, I think it's Jay Papasan talks about in his book, The One Thing, to keep my mind centered on God and get me straight in the morning. And, my spirit just told me, go look at the book of Job. And I had been thinking about other people as I've talked with people throughout the week and preparing for my broadcast this afternoon. And I remember reading in the first two chapters about how Satan came with the sons of God to present themselves. And he says, hey, have you considered my servant Job? Now, we could take out that name and put in anybody's name you want. And the next thing he's serving you because the only reason Ed is talking to you and the reason Tom is talking to you and others, because you put this hedge around them and, things are going good. Let me take that from them and watch them curse you to your face, right? That's the narrative. Well, we know in the end of the first chapter, his kids are gone and all his property's gone, and he still doesn't curse God. He still doesn't say anything. And the next chapter says, hey, they came to present themselves again. And here's Satan. And all of a sudden he goes, hey, yo, what's up, God? You're like, yo, dude, where you going? He said, I'm just walking up and down the earth, just checking it out. He said, the last time you didn't trick me, but I let you incite me, some translations say, and you messed Job up. He says, yeah, but skin for skin, I bet you if you touch him, I bet he'll curse you then. So the narrative goes on and he lets Satan do his thing, poor health, and etc. But the interesting part of that narrative, Ed, that I was reading, I went from chapter 3 through 38. And those three friends who saw him in chapter 3, all they could do, because he was so disgusted, so downtrodden, like we're talking about, being in the valley and how you overcome. The takeaway for me, Ed, is I read those three friends had three different discourses, chapters, the way we've codified the scripture. And when you get to 38, now God joins the party and goes, so you knuckleheads go sit down somewhere and shut your mouth. Don't say another word. So I'll stop there, Ed, just to say that's where the fun began in chapter 38 for me today. So yeah, it's good to know that we've been down and I'm excited that I'm still vertical. So I'm like Job, let me keep my mouth shut and just keep it moving.
Well, that kind of rolls right in, and I bet you I've got a little bit of insight into what your response is going to be. But how do you define success today?
Well, for me, and it's wrapped up in, I'll use two authors. I can't claim credit for it. The secret of success for me is having this constant and close relationship with God. It ends there, starts there. Napoleon put it this way about success being able to achieve a certain desired task, in harmony, without taking anybody else's property or having them impinge upon what you're trying to accomplish. So mine is steeped in and intermingled with some people in this new age call it infinite intelligence. I just straight up call it God, and I know who he is. and he's love. And so when I incorporate that business model, you can't help but be successful.
I love it. I love it. So through your journey, how has that definition of success changed?
Well, you cannot appreciate, the saying goes, you can't appreciate the glory because there's always the story. And it's that journey, whether it's physical, our muscles being challenged and torn, right? We know the physiology of how we strengthen ourselves. Well, that's the thing about, someone also had an adage about choose your hard. Life is hard. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Kids are hard. No kids are hard. Pick something. It's appreciating the time when I was homeless and looking. I said, he's got such a rich dad. I don't mean to rob, Kiyosaki stuff, but the concept for me is my son has so much, as my father shared with me, that he's not taking advantage of it. And that's on him. And I think at 25, we've seen people who have financial means, and those children can't negotiate life because they've had things done for them. We need hard, we need challenge. And that's how I think part of your show, people get to excel because they've had it hard and they've overcome those challenges. And you don't know what you're overcoming until you are tested. I think that's where the word testimony comes from. Somebody said, unless you've had a test, you do not have a testimony.
And owning a business is a large series of tests
Absolutely.
and what we do, how we do it, how we overcome it, etc.
Absolutely. But that's been my secret sauce is you either the storm is on the way, or you're in the middle of it, or you just left it and you can reflect and say, here are the lessons that I've learned. And I've learned quite a bit. I would say would be competing for Mr. Olympian, but I'm going to keep it humble. Just say, nope, it's God's grace, God, buddy. I know now just to keep him first and foremost. It's the grace of God that I can look back and say, yeah, he's brought me through.
So referring back to some of those key tests, what are one of the two of those key challenges and the lessons learned?
I think part of it is that I've learned about business and the business models we choose is that, again, that model of loving your neighbor as yourself, you got to know who you are. And when you do that, and I mean, you shared something with me, but it's also when those trials come, when you know yourself, is sometimes not even responding to people who want to knock you off your square or situations that knock us off our square. It's doing what a tree does, as R.C. Allen talked about. If you resist the windstorm that comes, chances are you're going to be broken. But the lesson learned is go with the flow, bend with the wind, and you don't resist it. So when those hard times come, you should have been praying anyway, but that's what you probably need to cling more to. Get on your knees and get a little, they used to say Liniment Watkins or something. Get back on your knees mentally and let what's going to come. And you'll see, Proverbs talks about the people without a vision perish, but it really is having your goals, your dreams that you're going to hold on to and hold fast to those. But as the old song goes, hold to God's unchanging hand. You cannot separate that.
So
And you
flow
have to
with the
hang on.
situations, learn from them, and through that process, work to enjoy life. Not,
Absolutely. Yeah. You can resist it if you want, and you'll be broken,
yes,
as nature teaches us.
yes. There's been one or two of those lessons in my life, that's for darn sure.
Yeah.
Any other
Yeah.
challenges you'd like to share in the lessons learned?
I think for your audience is I'm learning, and through my efforts at Alignable, I've introduced, and that's how we met. I just introduced so many people to each other. You don't have to know them, and I've shared that with you to love people, and just to say you share some common interest with another human being. There are 9 million members on that platform. Just being introduced, Ed, gives you that little extra edge. And maybe that's the one person that you might have been looking for. Maybe they're not your customer, but just you and I are classic examples. The fact that we've gotten closer and will continue, the Lord lets us live. That, oh, hey, you know what? Ed does such and such, or Dr. Hill does such and such, or these people do that. You just have to appreciate the introductions. And so overcoming that without pitch slapping is a phrase I've learned in Alignable. Don't sell people what you do and what your goods and services are. Be a human being and be, what can I do to help you get more views or help you network your business or show you how the platform works? That in itself, Ed, is what you give value to. And there are some who want to take advantage of others by charging for that, or what the favorite phrase today is what monetize it. Don't do that. Just give of yourself. Don't ask for anything in return and watch what happens in your life.
I
Any
was I
business
was I
model
was
works.
provided this book and I just started reading it, The Human
Can
Connection.
you? Okay. Yeah. Who's the author?
Cody Bateman.
Cody Bateman. Something for me to know. Cody Bateman. All right.
Yeah, and so far I absolutely love it. And then the other book, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's 365 Gratitudes for Better Living. And this I actually found when I was down in St. Croix a couple of weeks ago with my wife. And when we were coming through the botanical gardens, we were at the gift store at the very end. We had already met the proprietor. And so she saw me picking up, and when I was buying the book, she was like, "This is a St. Croix author." And they developed this book out of crisis from the point that they became homeless after the dual hurricanes that hit back in 2017. And it immediately connected with me. So I've since been in contact with the author a few different times, including talking to him on the phone. So I've got a new gratitude series that I started to post out there on LinkedIn. I did put one post out there on Alignable. And based on
Okay.
some rules that I understand from yesterday, I'm going to continue to try to post those out there.
Okay.
All they are is pay it forward inspirational messages and the gratitudes that he really embraced and learned through the journey from going from homeless to having to rebuild everything from absolute scratch.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
it's just a reminder. And I've had several guests on the podcast show that have been through life-threatening situations and had to recover from that. So I think your messages are well intended and well received relative to just the power of that human connection.
Yeah.
It does require a certain degree of patience and perseverance. It requires absolute focus on giving first. And that's something that's not always natural, but can be learned.
Isn't it interesting? And I was going to cheat by asking you, you didn't tell me the author's name for the 365 Gratitudes for Living. What's the author's name?
Greg Ray Dunnett.
Wait a minute. Greg Ray.
Ray Dunnett.
I
Yeah.
thought you were saying, like, well, Ray did it. So what did Ray do? No, done it. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, Dunnett.
All right. All right. Well, it's complementary to not only to what you just said, but when you mentioned that, there was one other challenge, and it happens in this time of year for me, the last 3 years, because it was in January of 2021. I was diagnosed with a rare, what was told to me then, a rare heart disease. If you're not familiar with a government site called pubmed.gov, it's sponsored by the National Institutes of Health. When they told me that, I immediately went to it. And part of the extension of being associated with this biotech manufacturer, I use that. And we tell people go to that. You don't have to believe what I'm telling you. Go look at the science, look at what people have been compiling for hundreds of years, but particularly since 2007. Anyway, the disease cardiac in African American men of 60 and over. Some of the markers are you had to qualify to be morbidly obese, diabetic, congestive heart failure, obstructive sleep apnea, had carpal tunnel. I'm probably missing something, but it was like 6 things, and I had tested for all. And when I had this exam, they said, "You got 4 to 7 months to live. All the data shows that, so get your affairs in order." Memorial Day, I drove from the Chicago area, from Naperville to Mayo Clinic myself. And God and I were having those kind of conversations. I wasn't doing the Hezekiah thing, or can I have more time? I'm looking at the scientific evidence that says it's in your heart, it's in the ventricle that you got congestive heart failure. So I did. And like I told you, this redox technology, I can't say that it was the single thing that saved my life, but I can tell you, being introduced to it in 2020 when we had no vaccine, and I was kind of down for about 3 or 4 days, revived because the body knows how to heal itself. And with the introduction of these molecules that everybody should know about and hear about, I'm here today to tell you I'll be 69 in the summer. So if he lets me live in the next few months, when you get that kind of challenge, buddy, that kind of gives you a whole. So it doesn't have to be abnormal cell growth that we know is cancer. Just have that life-changing experience. And guess what? You get a different perspective. And so Giving is something that I was already doing, but now I do it with a purpose, not because of what I'm still surviving. I still have. We've learned genetically, because I had to take some tests to corroborate the science, that is called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So when you get too many vowels, for at least for Dr. Hill, I have to go get a dictionary and a thesaurus and go, hey, well, slow down, doc. What are you talking about? I'm gonna tell my students in my class or libraries, if you got more than two vowels in your name, Dr. Hill's gonna have a little issue with it, so be patient with me. But a hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, even genetically, they found that it was not statistically significant. But at least I have the knowledge. I can continue to eat Hostess Twinkies and ding dongs and eat processed foods and do all the good things that I'm not supposed to do. And we all do those things, but those are challenges, Ed, that I've overcome. So you got to be tested. You got to go through something to appreciate the breaths that we have every day, and not just being that we're breathing, but to do so where you're touching and introducing others who may have similar challenges or not, but to know that you can overcome them with not only with God's grace, but a little bit of common sense too.
I appreciate you sharing that. I know that's very personal, and I think for our audience, it is a great reminder of it puts into perspective many of the challenges that we face every day that really aren't that significant in the overall scheme of things. So
Correct.
that goes back to what we were talking about earlier is go with the
Yes.
flow.
Go
Don't
with the flow. Since I had that test on Memorial Day, again, many of us are recognizing, my dad was in World War II, we recognize the military service. But when you've had that life-changing moment, and because mine occurred on Memorial Day, it's kind of a double-edged sword for me. And so I don't even talk about it a lot, but this is the week and people have asked. And so it's top of mind for me, but I can talk about it now, whereas before it really was a private thing. But how many people will get help because of this show and others? And again, it's about looking at the challenges that you have personally and saying, you may be equipped to handle business and marital affairs and all these other things, raising children. But when it's just you looking back in the mirror, that's the real test. Am I really about it, or am I really the imposter? And only you can answer that. And so that for me, that's top of mind for me, man. I'm not just talking spewing scripture and religion and I'm close to God. No, I've been there. Not like Dr. King said, I've been to the mountaintop, but it's one of those kind of experiences that when you have them, you know you're the real deal. And I know I am.
Well, I wish you all continued health and success.
Thank you. Absolutely.
The next question really moves to innovation. And when I consider innovation as part of what we've talked about so far, it's really
Mhm.
about this health technology and stuff like that.
Oh, isn't it? And you know what's interesting? Just as early as a week or two ago, maybe 10 days ago, a gentleman came on our private broadcast. A lot of medical staff do, because they're not the only game in town as a company that's a biotech manufacturer, SIA, but they had a 10 to 15-year head jump. And the innovation here comes. We were all told maybe at some time in our past how brain cells, when they die, they're dead. We know because of the technology that the only job of the redox signaling molecule is to give a signal. It's like an on-off switch. They're real tiny molecules. You don't have to eat them. They penetrate everything. And they get into the cell membrane, to the DNA level, to the genetic level. And the innovation has come that we have the technology that this gentleman who brain trauma, who had undergone himself significant brain damage. We know in education that the two hemispheres of the brain, your literal and your vertical and all of that, left and right hemisphere, stroke victims, that the brain, through what's called neuroplasticity, rewires itself. Well, those are the axioms, those are the dendrites in the brain cell that extend, and they're looking for other cells. But the redox molecule repairs, replaces, and rejuvenates at the cellular level cells, all 75 trillion or 100 trillion or whatever we got. They actually demonstrated this innovation was this brain scan that we know that can be done. Your prefrontal lobe, the executive functioning is here, and at the medulla, and they're showing how the patterns were lighting up, Ed, by the introduction of ingesting these molecules, in addition to pulling the molecules that's in a gel form right on, because it goes across the blood-brain barrier, lighting up and showing the cells regenerating. They filmed it, Ed.
Wow.
You talk about innovative, you talk about proof. We're not trying to convince people that this stuff works. It just works. The body knows what to do. I mean, we lose 1% a year as we age. That's all part of the oxidative stress. In fact, the very word redox is a contraction of reductants on one side, which handle all of the inflammatory response, and the oxidants, which handle all the oxidative stress response through antioxidants. And the two master antioxidants, the one major antioxidant is called glutathione. The introduction of these cells that when you're supplying, the body knows what to do with the four molecules, hydrogen and oxygen, sodium and chloride. But when they're combined in 16 different ways and what they've learned to do by stabilizing these molecules, that's been the key. It's the stabilization outside of the human body. The body will, like the very first two, human egg, human sperm, the coding is there. And once they meet, guess what happens? We all know. Now, you can be, stillborn or blah, 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 but the genetic code in two cells will keep dividing. And whether they're abnormal cells or healthy cells, that code is in every human and every animal. And the innovation is, the secret is having the body to replenish at that cellular level, that we now know that the NRF2 gene is a pathway that opens up 15 other genetic pathways that improves cardiac health, immune health. And it's right on the bottom. It's just so amazing, Ed, that they're now doing things with energy and vehicles and we just have a company that's on the leading edge of this. It's like being with Coca-Cola back when it was really kind of discovered. And somebody over at Pepsi going, hey, but we got a better product. And then, the 7-Up people, no, we got a better product. So, but that's where we are with this innovative technology. It is so, so amazing. Yeah.
And there's been so many advancements, and as quantum compute starts to grow in its presence, hybrid quantum as kind of a subset of that, quantum being used in very precise ways in conjunction. Do you have any insights into what that future could look like?
I could, but with all the trade secrets that we have and the patents that we have, I'm not supposed to say anything. But I will tell you this, it is unfolding as we speak. When we use artificial intelligence and all the marketing that goes on about people's fears and blah, 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 they did this without AI, to my knowledge. Now add that layer of technology. Where will redox signaling molecules go then, and what will be the applications? When they came up with other products that help with digestion and brain fog and people who have brain trauma and autistic, and seeing them recover, seeing them do things, Ed, that are just, it's almost like one of those Guinness Book of World Record kind of things. It's amazing, and we're doing it just by referring people. It's not some vending machine.
One of the questions I've got with all of this, whether you're talking about RNA, you're talking about redox, we're talking about stem cell.
Got it. Yeah.
There's all kinds of incredible advancements out there, and they really do have value. Now, the RNA activity, I don't know. I haven't been keeping up with where that is at, but at one point that was really going to take over and help produce better products from what we previously created. And that's all great. But part of the challenge I see is we've got 8 billion people on this planet. There's 8 billion people that could use these, and there's developing countries. There's incredibly poor people. I mean, we've talked a little bit. My wife and I are relocating. We're relocating down to the Caribbean. And in each of those islands, in many cases, it's a tale of two worlds relative to the natives and how many times they live versus expats and others that come to the island. And the point simply is that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're at. Everybody needs this, but this stuff is so incredibly expensive. Combine that with the inflationary costs, just living costs have gone up huge percentages. And I've seen a couple of statistics out there that says homes are 30% more while incomes on average are up 20%. And that doesn't take into consideration the insurance cost increases, the health costs, et cetera. So people have less spending money and yet they have these types of needs. Do you have any thoughts relative to how this
Yeah.
world starts to balance itself out?
We've got a video that describes that. It's called the Genesis video. In fact, when the study was done, and Big Pharma tried to buy this from the founder, Vertus Norton, and his son, Tyler, and that's an ongoing battle daily. Big Pharma did not want this technology out. And the founders chose principle over profit. And when they tested this, 35 people or 20 people back in the day to see, but found that with those 20, it had ballooned to 135 people in 20 other countries. Now, hear me when I say this, Ed. Today, there are governments around the world are resistant to us coming into their market. When we opened up China last year, for example, China is notorious for reverse engineering.
Yeah.
Can't be done right now. Cannot be. But watch this. You know that old adage about if you can't beat them, join them? So we are marketing this product through the Chinese government on a retail basis. Now, as expensive as it already is, and the price points are set because of the cost of manufacturing, we understand that. But when you say, here's a life-saving technology that is open to the world, and we're distributing it by word of mouth, just like you do movies and everything else. It's not some, they could have went retail, they could have went mail, they could have went various ways. But this product requires education. It requires a conversation. I won't name countries, I almost did, but the governments are so greedy. We've got product through word of mouth where it's still sitting on the dock. I don't mean to change supply. I mean, just to get it in the country, they know what it is, some, and they're charging exorbitant prices just to get it off the dock. Again, I won't name the Caribbean island. Nevertheless, it's getting in countries because of word of mouth in various ways. I have some friends who live in South Africa. I sent the gel, and we had to look at the list of what products and cosmetics and things that you cannot export, you can't import. And because it's made from 4 molecules, which we know today is salt water, why would a government not allow salt water in their country when the dadgum world is surrounded with it? But you can't patent salt water, so you can't make any money off of it, right? And think of this. We've grown from 120 people. We've got millions of people, and we're just scratching the surface, and people are just hearing about it. Trust me when I tell you, when governments find a way, and when people, through word of mouth, find a way to get something, they'll get it. And it won't have to be black market. But when people say this product is expensive, I say compared to what? When your life's on the line. And why should you wait until it gets to be on the line when you should be doing things that we already know the medical professionals told us? Have a healthy diet, get exercise, don't eat processed foods. But we're fighting the other three-letter agencies, the FDA, the FTC, and the Food and Drug Administration. I saw an ad that I don't know if it was Kraft or General Foods, that the cereals that they were doing and the triphosphates that are in Cocoa Puffs and Fruit Loops and stuff, they're sitting right there in front of you. And they occur through the commercial. But we're hooked on them. McDonald's, they're hooked on. Now we got plant-based burgers. What's a plant? I've never had one. I don't think I'm gonna try one. So I don't know about you, Ed, but I don't mind intermittent fasting, but there are just things that we have a mental block when really it's programming. It's the price point is set where it's beneficial for the manufacturer, it's beneficial for the consumer, and that's where they chose this way of distributing the product through word of mouth. Can you imagine them doing at a corporate level and having salespeople try to offer? It would be even more out of reach for most people.
Well, I think this is a much bigger problem because even tracking from what you're talking about, this still limits these types of solutions to a very select few around the world.
Yeah.
And I follow Abundance 360 and the longevity.
Okay.
They've got a longevity arm associated with Abundance 360. And lately, I haven't been reading those articles as much, but I do glance at the headings as they're coming through. But part of the
Sure.
reason is because, yeah, I'd love to be able to take advantage of all this stuff. But if I did, I'd have no money for anything else. And
Yeah.
so this starts to break down once again between the haves and the have-nots. So I think the medical field in itself and the advances that we're making as a world, as a collective set of societies, I just see a lot of challenges and a lot of disparity.
Your question too, Ed, about being innovative and innovation in general. With something like this, and with enough people around the world, it will get where it has to go. It may take a little bit more time. And with the current things and challenges that are going on, I'm not caught up about what's going on in the Middle East or any other part of the world. I'm trying to figure out what's going on at the address where I live and keeping this world in between my ears focused on what I need to do. And at some point, if I'm bold enough, like we're doing through this medium, open up my mouth, which I don't ordinarily do. I think 3 people, 5 people in the last 6 months, I've done interviews like this and being personal. And I would not have done that had not God given me the opportunity and the platform through Alignable, because no one would have heard of me. And I'm not doing it for that reason. But the fact that your audience who may hear this is how the word of God spread. They weren't using the internet, but yeah, Jesus wrote not one book. And yet everybody keeps talking about it. And we're thousands of years down the pipe. And guess what? It's going to get there, Ed. It's going to get there. But greed and governments and mankind, we've just got to have more people who get that. What I said, well, for my business model, when you love your neighbor as you love yourself, you'll find a way. And compassion will outweigh all of what you just said and overcome. And that's what Romans says. At the end of Romans, Paul says that to not be overcome with evil, but to overcome evil with good. You cannot let the light of God that's in each of us be covered or hampered by the light of knowledge and potential that we can power by just having a conversation like an Alignable and talking to your neighbor. Let me introduce you to so and so, because we don't know through those 6 degrees of separation who they know and who they know. And that's what I love about what you do and what you're providing. Just another way of innovating what is good for people. And it's people helping people, not vending machines.
I applaud your efforts and continue to support and try to do similar myself and just perpetuating the right approach, help everywhere that I can, however I can. And many of the people, and I will tell you that since getting into this business and this podcast, I've met so many wonderful people. And coming out of corporate America, I can tell you that I met some wonderful people, but I met a lot of people that I questioned their values.
Well, that goes back to the earlier thing about exercising muscles and being challenged. And, you could be rigid and break or go with the flow and learn lessons from them.
So, final takeaway for our audience. What would that one thing that you would say they must consider as part of their journey?
You have got to get a handle on your attitude. Attitudes are like flat tires. If you don't change it, you're not going anywhere. So decide you're going to feed the wolf of faith and not the wolf of fear. Jesus said it better than I did. You cannot serve 2 masters. You're going to either hate the one and love the other, or you're going to despise the one and cling to it. You cannot do it. So don't be duplicitous in your thoughts. Don't be duplicitous in the way you behave. Love your neighbor like yourself. And one of my athletic coaches in a business that I was in early used to say it this way: if you can live by these 3 things, even if you're not biblical, if you're not a spiritually minded person, live by this. If it's not right, don't do it.
I love it.
If it's not true, don't say it. And for heaven's sake, for God's sake, if it's not your money, don't take it. If you can do those 3 things as a takeaway, you will advance in life much further than you would and probably be successful in the process.
Outstanding.
Those 3 things. Those 3 things.
Wonderful message. Wonderful message. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and a special thank you to our incredible guest, Dr. Thomas Hill, for sharing his insights, experiences, and success tactics with us. We hope this conversation has left you inspired and motivated to embrace the challenges of entrepreneurship with vigor, innovation, and adaptability. Remember, success comes in many forms. It's essential to define it for yourself. But take the lessons shared by Dr. Hill to heart as you navigate your own entrepreneurial journey. Embrace change, seek out opportunities for growth, and always be willing to adapt to the ever-evolving landscape of business. Thank you once again to our phenomenal guest speaker, Dr. Thomas Hill, and thank you all for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you next time as we continue exploring the stories behind incredible entrepreneurs. Stay resilient and stay innovative, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Bye-bye.